If today this only turns out to be a PNM initiative, the opposition is the only person or the opposition, the only entity represented today, what does that tell you about, one, this issue in the national landscape, and also the PNM's ability to effectively touch the population?
Let's put this in context. Today is Tuesday. March starts at 1 o'clock. It's a burning and imperative issue. If one man alone makes that march, then that's good enough in this country. And I'll tell you why. It is the fact of opposition, not that I expect that one man is going to come. Trinidad and Tobago is not known to be a society of well-organized protesters, particularly against the government. And that's mainly because in this particular climate, I speak with certainty when I say this, a lot of people are afraid of victimization by the government. So there are going to be many questions as to whether people wish to come out and be seen to support. But we know for a fact that the people of this country, from the highest office holders, other than in the government, come down, that there is genuine support for this issue. We are sure that people will be following the issue, and we are confident that this thing is going to reverberate in the minds of the communities that make up our society.
What is the next step? Would you not agree that we need something like Section 34 to deal with the backlog of cases?
Absolutely.
What is the next step for the opposition? This has now become a political issue. It's now become a national issue.
It's a legal issue. It's a constitutional issue. It's a national issue. It's an international issue insofar as you've had people like the government of the United States of America making public announcements. So this is a wide-ranging issue. And it has multiple consequences which result in the consideration of what is the next step.
Senator, you sit in the upper house. The fact that a number of independent senators actually continue to support this Section 34 and continue to support this, saying that everyone was aware, what does that tell you?
It tells you that the government lied, full stop. If everybody opposite is telling you the section as represented to us made sense, it deals with backlogging, we stood in a unanimous position of agreeing to support a clause which ameliorates the criminal justice system. It says everybody was on the same page and the government lied. That's what it says. Call a spade a spade. The law as considered upon the representations made and undertakings given was good law. The problem is the absurd, opaque, deceitful, surreptitious, early proclamation of Section 34 by the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago.
Were you aware of the January 2nd date?
When I saw the proclamation on the 10th of September, proclamation is put out for gazetting. It is published on the 10th of September, the legal notice. Very conspicuous, but here I want to jump to a point. It's not so hard to give an explanation into this, because there is a cabinet note, and there is a cabinet minute, and there's a cabinet attendance sheet as to who was there.
During the
so
debate,
it's very, very simple.
During the debate, there was also the issue that the government claimed that the opposition actually was calling for 7 years as opposed to the 10-year mark. We can debate about years for all time.
Again, distraction. 7 years from the laying of offenses in the court is very different from 10 years from the original position. The bottom line is that with the misrepresentation made, the clause doesn't make sense. So the correct representations have to be made. It turns out, contrary to the statements made that the DPP was satisfied or in full consultation on this issue, it turns out that that was grossly untrue. So the bottom line is the government lied. We can't escape this. Run around the mulberry bush as much as you wish. We cannot escape the simple facts.
Senator, before we wrap this interview, your closing comments. The opposition intends to begin its march at 1 p.m. today, highlighting what they say is a gross misrepresentation of the facts. Your closing comments.
My closing comments is that I think that this is the line that the government has stepped beyond. I think that the citizens of this country should genuinely feel a sense of peril and fear, and that we have to call upon the government to give full explanation, and that the steadfast silence on the part of the Honorable Prime Minister as the head of this government, as the head of the executive, as the person with responsibility for cabinet is intolerable. We have got to see issues answered, because if it's going to happen on this occasion, it's going to happen on many more occasions.
We just got a caller actually asking about white-collar crime. Why was it not included in Section 6, and why did the opposition? I think I'm just...
Quick answer to that, quick question. It would have been included by way of the minister's order in respect of an amendment, Section 27.3 of the Act. If 27.3 was actually proclaimed, because it wasn't, could have easily made that fit, because the government said that it was going to go back and look at positions, and when all things were ready, after consultation, post-consultation of the issue, we could have tightened positions.
Senator, thank you so much for joining us this morning. The opposition intends to begin their march at 1 p.m. today, highlighting what they say is a misrepresentation of the facts. The Attorney General, we need to move on. The Minister of Justice resigning never crossed my mind. I'm Hema Ramsey, and I'll see you on the next side of this break. We're going to look at the budget and Labour. Stay with us.
I thought we would have a longer period.
Welcome back to Trinidad and Tobago. I'm Hema Ramsey. Thanks so much for staying with us. Budget 2012-2013. Robert Giuseppe, well-known former trade union leader. He's sat in almost every labor board in the country. He's represented workers from various state sector companies. He's now consulting. He continues to look at the industrial relations climate in our country, one that remains very heated. Ansel Roger had an address to the nation saying that, you know, they will not accept government's behavior. pt3 chairman saying that the refinery, the profits are down, revenue streams are down. All of this as we approach budget 2012-2013. Mr. Giuseppe, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning to you, Hema, and all your viewers and listeners.
How would you describe the industrial relations climate?
Well, I am looking at it within the context of the society. As I said, our society must not remain unequal. So as we start off on that point, you will see that the climate will be a reflection of the society. Our society is an unequal society. We are seeing that the markets, they are not democratically governed, right? And the battle is not really for the best ideas. It should be for the best interests. So I like to start on those 3 points and see how far we can reach, you know, in this morning discussion. And the whole idea of the industrial relation climate, as I said, there's inequity. Inequity existing right through our society. And how are we to sort of approach a solution to that issue? We have to be able to have a different sort of idea, a different sort of thinking, a different sort of ideology.
But this happened before. I mean, we had a former Labour leader as Prime Minister of this country at one time. Funny, our current Prime Minister sat in that cabinet. She was part of that government when Mr. Pandey seemed to have achieved some strides getting this tripartite arrangement into place. But yet now we seem to be further from that as at any other point in our history. All of this on the backdrop that our productivity is on the decline, the competitive index is on the decline, while other countries in the Caribbean seem to be getting their act together, all coming together. We just seem to be getting further from our target point. Okay,
let's, for the time we have, let's concentrate in the public sector, the central, local government, state enterprises. And let's look at the structure as far as industrial relations is concerned. The structure is archaic. It is part of a 20th century sort of structure. The whole management of industrial relations have drifted into an area where we are just looking at certain human resource, human resource action, and this it cannot be the way to approach the modern industrial relations climate. The modern industrial climate is as we say, there's unrest going on, and when you look at the 80,000 workers that are within the state sector, you see that the structure and management and the whole idea, the mechanism of industrial relations is part of the problem.
Looking at the structure in the public sector, the arrangement with the CPO, the Public Sector Negotiating Committee, are these institutions serving no purpose, and should we now get rid of them?
Yeah, not now. We should have gotten rid of them some 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago, right, as we came into the 21st century. our governments, in the present and in the past, have accepted the whole idea of, they have signed on to the ILO's decent work agenda, to the ILO's social dialogue since in the early 21st century. And one has to admit that there's a very slow movement towards that, because government seems to be afraid to really have real democracy inter-industrial relations. And real democracy will cover industrial democracy, and there is no idea that there has been an attempt over the past 10 years to have real industrial democracy.
What do you think about the style of the trade union leaders? The labor unions in the United States are all but almost this, I think, demonished or admonished. Many say that labor does not have a place in a truly capitalist society, that the styles are archaic, that while they are protecting workers, they're also promoting a lack of productivity.
I really don't believe that, because I have been involved heavily with the ASL-CIO in America, and I think they are very progressive. I think America is, in terms of the conservative, there's an overabundance on the conservative side to sort of ensure that labor standards and the rights of workers are depressed. So most of the information we have been getting is from that part of the American society, the well conservative, the ultra conservative. But back to Trinidad and Tobago, you have
are they bullying?
You have asked a good question. I am thinking that some of our labor leaders, right? I like to separate labor leaders from the members, right?
Right.
I love to separate it, because I do not think some of them are really appreciating how the members are thinking at this point in time. When you walk the streets of Port of Spain, I don't know how many of them walk the streets and able to stand up by a corner and have conversations. You hear the ordinary working man or woman criticizing the whole environment in which they have to operate under. And there seems to be no idea or no movement from some of the factions of labor, and that is a real problem. Labor have about 3 factions now, and they are the independent unions, they are the NATO, there's FITAN, and therefore we have seen labor leaders say they don't want no part of this, part of the labor movement. This sends a terrible message. This sends a terrible message to the working and common people. And the working and common people who have suffered, as I said, who have suffered most for the past 10, 15 years, they seem to be sort of distancing themselves from many of the issues that they are trying to deal with.
What are you hoping to see in the budget?
In the budget, I am hoping to see, you're seeing people are looking at the money aspect, but if the structure that we have as far as labor is concerned, as far as industrial relations is concerned, as far as how our workers to benefit from a budget, if the structure and management of the whole industrial relation does not change, if there is not enough industrial democracy within the system, let me give you an idea of the system. The CPU, as far as the law is concerned, the IRA, it states that the CPO is the employer of the central and local government workers. We have some 80 or 70-something thousand people under the CPO, okay? The law is clear as far as the IRA is concerned, that your matters, you have to negotiate with the CPO. But the CPO is not the de facto employer. The CPO is just a conduit that has to negotiate with all these trade unions